A very, very good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see a house full today. And it's such a great pleasure for me to welcome all of you here, members of PAFI, past presidents of PAFI, our supporters, friends, a lot of excellencies, ambassadors. Just amazing to see all of you come out today. In fact, I'm not like super religious, but it's a great day today. Apparently, a lot of new beginnings with Akshaya Tritiya. So, just extending my good wishes to all of you. Today, actually, we have a very back-to-back program. So, I hope we'll see you all through the day. It's interesting that as I was getting out of here, I had 2 other invites, and yesterday also had gone for a meeting. And unfortunately, because of the Model Code of Conduct and other things, the CA meeting has been postponed to another day. But we have very exciting sessions for you all today, which will be discussing geopolitics with the very eminent ambassadors we have with us. We will also be getting into another session on global perspectives, how the world's moving, how the public affairs landscape is evolving, with senior editors of leading media papers, etc. And then in the afternoon, we'll have the most wonderful session for the annual general meeting for the members. But until then, stay with us, and we'll keep putting in the details after every session. So let's start today with, this is something deep. I actually want you to come in also here and give a little snapshot of what we have done. So this first session is the presentation of report, Public Affairs in India and Evolving Landscape. I'm not sure, can I have a raise of hands, the folks who have read the earlier report? Oh, that's not bad. We have few here. So Deep, do you want to just say what we did with the earlier report and why was this launched? The PAFI ISPP partnership. I'll come to ISPP later, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the earlier report, and I was going to talk about that in the presentation, but I mean, just to start off, the earlier report came out in November 2022, which was, to the best of our knowledge, one of the first attempts to speak with people in the industry, in the public affairs industry that we all belong in, and find out trends, find out the directions, find out the status, right, of the people that work in it, and also for people that are thinking about this as a career option, right? And this was in 2022. And sometime last year, we wanted to go back to this topic and essentially find out the direction that the profession has taken since then, for both practitioners as well as people, younger people who are thinking of joining, right? And the idea is essentially to keep doing this every few years and kind of have a trajectory, if you will, of the profession in terms of everything, in terms of availability of talent, in terms of what kind of qualities one looks for, in terms of course, salaries, in terms of retention strategies, retention challenges, and so on. And that's something that I think we have been able to capture to an extent in this report.
Thanks, Deep. So Deep is Director PAFI and has been putting in a lot of effort in bringing all these initiatives together for us. And I am also very pleased to have with us today our knowledge partner, Parth Shah, Dean and co-founder, Indian School of Public Policy. Thank you, Parth, for joining us. We also have with us Deepshika Dharmraj. All of you know Deepshika very well. She's the Vice President PAFI and Chief Executive Officer BCW India Group. So I think, as Deep mentioned, today we are really going to, in this session, catch the pulse. And I'm using the word pulse because, and it's not being used in any other sense, but to really show how the whole public affairs landscape in India is now evolving and how it's evolving today with so many global challenges and headwinds. And the best part of this report is, Parth, I was able to glance through it, is how you have been able to really, look at different aspects of public affairs. So, I'm not going to give away everything out now. Let's bring this discussion, and I'd love to have it more participatory. So, Parth, would you like to give us a brief synopsis and an address?
Thank you, Vinita. And good morning, everyone, and thank you, Vinita, for having us here. We at ISPP are really very proud of this partnership with PAFI. And we believe in at ISPP that we need to teach theory and practice both. Public policy is very much like medicine. You need to have a larger theory, but also obviously you have to apply the theory to specific problems that you are trying to solve, right? And requires that we have good combination of theory and practice. And what we have done to, of course, theory we are able to do quite well. We have very eminent faculty at ISPP to be able to teach that part of the curriculum. For the practice part of it, for the experiential learning that we think is very critical for our graduates, we have been partnering with a lot of different people. And this is a very unique partnership we have had with PAFI for producing this report. We came in a little later on in the sort of exercise, but I think we have been able to contribute quite significantly to this process. I'm not going to also go into the report because I know Deep is going to give you full overview of what are the key findings, and some of them are quite interesting findings, not just for the public affairs people, but also for people like me who are running public policy schools, right? And there's interesting learning from that, what we should be doing at public policy schools to make this partnership with the public affairs sort of team more meaningful and more productive, right? So let me just recognize the interns who worked on this report. They're all sitting there. If you don't mind standing up.
Yeah.
So
big applause, please.
Astha, Shreya, Jibin, Deepak. There were actually 5 interns. The 5th one, yes, he's interning in Mumbai, so couldn't join us. But I just brought his just published small book, which is a book of poetry, right? And I think that gives you a flavor of how public policy also is quite poetic. He's a multi-talented guy, and I think that we have many people who bring a lot of different talent and experience to the table. So Prayas could not join us, but this is a very nice book, nice compilation of his poems. How Does a Stone Love? That's the title of the book. Yeah. Before I end, I just want to, since this is also a broader meeting that you are hosting for PAFI members, right? I want to throw one question for you and also seek your guidance. How do we work together in answering this question, right? So I often get asked by our scholars that, you know, as a public policy person, my larger commitment, right, is to larger public interest. So as a public policy person, I used to be looking after larger public interest. But if I go and work with the private sector in a corporate, then obviously my responsibility is to serve the private interest of the company or organization that I'm working for, right? And the question becomes, how do I reconcile while serving the private interest of obviously obligations that I have undertaken with my own choice by choosing to work there, but at the same time, obviously keep in mind my larger commitment that I have made as a public policy professional, which is to larger public interest, right? And I don't know you know that, but we also have an oath, just like the Hippocratic oath that the doctors take. Our graduates also take an oath at the time of graduation, and that requires them to think about certain basic principles, the Indian Constitution and the constitutional values which are enshrined there, and how do you then uphold those values throughout your career in public policy.
I remember, Parth, I had administered that oath, but let's come to that a little later if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving this question with you all, and I already have some questions planned now for Parth. But before that, Deep, let's have you, just share with us the synopsis and the main highlights of this report, please. You want to come here? Come.
Hello everyone. So I'm going to go through some of the major findings of the report. The background we have already talked about. Essentially, what you see on the left is the previous report in 2022, and the other one is the current one. Now, what we have done in this is basically tried to expand the scope, right? Previous one was only with surveys. This time there's some context to it. There's not some, there's a lot of context to it, because the findings from the survey, we took to senior people in the profession. We talked to them about those, trying to understand what these mean. Are these trends, or what are we seeing? And that essentially, I think, has made the report richer, which I'm sure you will find useful when you read through it. We also made the respondent profile more diverse, if you see, right? And what you see at the bottom, you can't see it too well perhaps, but essentially those are the kind of questions that they went through, size of teams, mandate, recruitment policies, retention, etc. And one of the major things we saw was a huge jump in the number of public sector consultancies between 2022 and 2024. Of course, it's not exhaustive, right? But if you look sectorally, there's been a major jump there. Now, the good news is that most of the people we spoke with, 64%, over 2/3 of them said that they have had a public policy team for the last at least 15 years or so, right? And this is a jump from 55% between 2022 and now. So that's definitely a good sign. And if you think about it, this also kind of coincides with the introduction of PLCP in 2014, CSR in 2013, indicating that the possibility that these kind of policies have actually helped the field of public policy, public affairs grow more, become more relevant, and allow us to be more proactive in consultations. What is the size and scope, right? So interestingly, 49%, about half the size of teams, said that they need public policy or public affairs teams that are between 1 and 5 people, and that's what they foresee for 2024. This number in 2022 was 57%. So a greater number of respondents are saying that 1 to 5% is sufficient. The pie chart on the right is of companies that have revenues exceeding rupees 10,000 crores. Amongst them, 64% are saying that they will need less than 5 people in their public affairs teams in 2024, right? And we don't have a chart for it, but the other interesting data point that came out, which we could perhaps get deeper into later as we continue with this study, is that of the public affairs consultancies that we spoke with, amongst these companies, 75% of these companies said that they will need more than 10 public affairs professionals in their teams in 2024. So does that indicate that a lot of companies are essentially keeping some core activities to themselves, outsourcing quite a bit of it? Perhaps, but what it definitely does indicate is that the consultancies are finding business, are growing in number, and are actively working in various sectors. Recruitment. So without, almost with no exception, almost everyone we spoke with talked about that finding the right people at the right time with the right experience and right education continues to be a challenge. 75% of the people we spoke with said that it takes up to 6 months to fill a vacancy, which they would want to do faster, right? 43% of the respondents also said that the most useful way of finding the people they need is word of mouth or referrals, far outstripping LinkedIn or headhunters or any other agencies. Now, 2 interesting trends seem to come out of the data that we have on recruitment. One is, as I said, that finding the right talent takes time, and therefore very often the recruitment periods get stretched longer than the companies would want. The other is consultancies are using all channels, okay, LinkedIn, websites, campus recruitments, other recruitment sources, and they're looking at a wider talent pool across sectors. So they're looking at generalists more often than what the companies are looking for, which are sector specialists. Training public affairs professionals. Some part of the issue to find the right people can be mitigated by training people regularly, right? So about 67%, 2/3 of our respondents said that their company provides training at least once a year. However, as the graph on the right side shows, there are more structured training schedules and programs in companies headquartered outside India. and they seem to have fixed schedules and how they go about training their people. Retention challenges. Now, one part of the problem obviously is finding the right talent, the right people for the right job at the right time. The other part is keeping them. What you see is a comparison between the previous report and this one, and we see the numbers that 77% of the respondents, up from 64%, say that they find retention to be a challenge. Why do people leave? Lower number of people are saying they leave for better opportunities. Similarly, lower number of people seem to be discontent with salaries. But at the same time, concerns about keeping people increases. One way of looking at it could be that it's a more dynamic industry, and 2022 was right after COVID. Things have moved about quite a bit after that. It is possible that as the industry expands, there is more mobility because people are finding different kind of jobs, more jobs that is to their liking. Which brings us to compensation, which is always the slide that everyone waits for, I know. Now, while discontentment over salaries does come up as a substantial issue, what this slide tells us is also that regardless of positions, if a company thinks that they have the right person for the right role, they are okay with undertaking a particular cost to their company. It also tells us that public affairs can be a well-paying career, which values seniority, experience, the right kind of experience, the right kind of knowledge and skills. However, if you look at the range, what it also tells us is that there is a lack of standardized practice, right? And some kind of structure needs to come about in how these structures are made. Major concerns for companies. 47%, almost 50% of the respondents said that they sorely miss the existence of a way, an industry-wide way that can show their efficacy, that can show their impact, right? That's the major issue. This is followed by a challenge of unclear career progression, and about 1/4 of the respondents said that, about 1/5 of the respondents concerningly said that they feel that there is a lack of alignment between what they do as public affairs professionals and what the overall strategy of their company is. Now, this came about in various ways. People talked about how sometimes they are coupled under various other kind of divisions or departments, somewhere law, somewhere something else, marketing and so on. They also talked about how, as a result of that, people in other parts of the company that they report to may not always understand what they're doing, which keeps going back to the issue of there being the absence of a solid metric that they can use. So we got a little deeper into this, into the idea of how do we measure success of public affairs professionals, right, or the initiatives that they undertake. Policy impact for about 44% of the respondents was immediately the top metric, which also makes sense. But the problem they also mentioned with policy impact is that it's slow, right? You never know how long it's going to take. It can take 6 months, it can take 2 years, it can take longer. In the absence of that, about 21% of respondents said that they prefer qualitative metrics like stakeholder feedback, reputation surveys, and case studies, right? And only 4% people said that they use quantitative metrics like media analytics and website data. Now, when we went to do our key informant deep dive interviews, what we found is that this once again indicates that there is the need of some kind of a clearly defined framework that can be utilized across the industry. And this is something that we at PAFI have been thinking about, have been talking about. It's something close to our heart, and this is something that we hope to take up more as we go ahead. That's in short what we have in the report, but there is much more. We and our knowledge partners, our friends, scholars sitting there, we have put in quite a bit of work. I hope you find it useful. We do have some physical copies that should be available, but if you want to raise your phone and scan that, that should take you to the website where we have the report available in www.pafi.in. thank you for your attention, and we look forward to questions.
Thank you, Deep. Thank you, Deep. Thank you so much. I'll take this opportunity to thank all the scholars here, ISPP, Parth, and all the members who participated so actively in the survey. And you know, let's open the forum to questions. But if I can ask you the first question here, Parth, because as you were speaking, there was just something that hit me. In this room today, we have veterans in policy. You know, we have veterans who've practiced public policy for over 30 years. We have very senior professionals. We also have professionals from the middle management. And we also have professionals who worked on the other side, you know, we from the industry, they from the government and media. And so when you did this report, and when the scholars surveyed the responses, was there that one emerging characteristic, some kind of a connect or a disconnect that was coming out? Because I see a lot of strong numbers, you know, that have come out. For example, referrals, retention, lean mean teams. But what was that one thing that struck you all, which was either a disconnect between what you also said, corporates and maybe government, corporates and academics?
So I think one thing I noticed, and I think also highlighted in the presentation, which I think is very important for us to think about, is the success metric. How do I judge how successful I am, right? Not just for the company I'm working for, but also for myself, right? I'm in this area because I want to make a difference in the larger society. And as you pointed out, policy change takes long time. And often, as many of us who work in the policy domain know very well, that it could be decades, right? Not just years before things change the way you want them to change. And I think that's really, I found that was coming out very clearly, even for the working professionals, right? Who may not come from public policy background directly, but they also highlighted, came out in the report, that it was difficult for them to see what success, what are they contributing to the larger cause of the company or the society.
So we need to, in our next report, delve deeper into that aligned word we use.
No. Yeah.
Thank you. We're opening now for questions for Parth. Please raise your hands and give a short introduction, your name and your company, please. Yes, Vish. And then we'll come to you. The mic, please.
Good morning, Parth. First of all, thank you very much. I must say that Deep and I work very closely with your team, and I want to thank again the team for...
Yes.
Yeah. I know the pressure Deep and I put on every meeting that day. You know, so they took the pressure, they delivered. So thank you so much for what you did.
That's the part of the training we want.
This is one question I have. Now that the report is out, and you see the things there, how do you see that impacting, if you're looking at ISPP, you know, going next year? What do you think should change in ISPP to reflect the kind of trends that you see?
So that's what we were discussing just before we started the meeting, that what are the key lessons for us, and I was also asking some of the senior members of your team, that we need to, and Ajay Khanna actually did for the first time this year, a short course on corporates and public policy, right? And I think you brought in very, very good people as part of that session that you ran. And I think that really is a challenge also for public policy schools, because we are geared, my background is economics, PhD in economics. Most of my faculty come from economics, PhDs or political science, right? So we are good in terms of training people what they can do in government, right? And what they can do in, say, think tanks and other entities of that kind, right? So Samaj and Sarkar, if you think of Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar, right? Samaj and Sarkar part, I think we are very clear. And I think we do a very good job of training people in that area. What they do with Bazaar, in a sense, with the business world, is still, I think, is an evolving question. And I think we are relying on Ajay and many of your members to sort of think with us together to see what can we do to provide those kind of skills, aptitude, and obviously experience that they need to do well. Because I personally believe that Bazaar is equally important, right? So from a public policy point of view, it's not just Sarkar that does everything, right? We want Bazaar to play an important role. And I think we need to train people to see how they can serve that cause also.
Thanks. There was a question at the back. Yes, please. The gentleman at the back. Oh, sorry, Amit, yeah.
So good morning. I think it was a wonderful report. 2-3 suggestions, and maybe I do not know whether those are already covered in this. And maybe this would be good for the young public affairs professionals to look at. Were we able to segregate the report or the teams or the approach towards it and even the salary within, let's say if it is a manufacturing industry, if it is something like, so because it makes a hell lot of difference, that is one. The second is the perception of any organization towards public affairs professional, whether it is a cost center or a revenue center. It changes everything, whether it is the team size, whether it is the compensation and everything, and how it is respected and regarded within where it enjoys the seat, whether at a decision-making level or just as an execution level. So were we able to look at such aspects?
Please share your name and organization for everyone's
Yeah,
benefit.
you announced it, so Amit from Asian Paints.
Please go ahead.
Amit, great question. So we have the data on the salaries and sectors. We did not analyze it in the same, we did analyze it in the way, but it was not giving us a very clear trend line. So that's not here, but as we keep doing this and as we have more people, we talk to, I think we'll be able to give that trend. And that's very useful. That is a conversation that we did have with the team at one point. I understand your point about whether it's a cost center or revenue center, and that is really interesting. So as part of this, when we were conducting the interviews is when we came to understand this issue with where does public affairs fit in, right? So for our next report, that could be possibly one of the questions where we try and see where in the organization they fit in and whether that's a cost center, revenue center, and how they feel about, right? So there will possibly have to be a little more qualitative part of the study and not just quantitative. But yeah, very, very useful thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks. You want to add something?
No, I just want to add that, most important part of the success of such study is number of participants, right? So I would urge all of you to make a commitment from your side and the sector that you represent, right? In the next round, you bring in a lot more people to participate. So I think we are able to do a lot more detailed analysis and give you, I think, more nuanced understanding of what is happening in the sector.
May I just add one little insight that I had when I was urging members to get down to the surveys. Most said that, and they were from different functional areas or working with different functional areas, and this is adding spice to the report. Most said that our work was very masked. We were not able to take end-to-end ownership in our businesses as public policy professionals. So I think that's a dilemma, and that's something, again, we can bring, we can discuss, that how do public policy practitioners get the due weightage for their work, not just in appraisals and performances, but in impact. So I'll leave with that, and over to you, ma'am, yeah. And please give your name and organization.
Thanks, Nita. So Swati Ranatari, United Health Group. So first of all, fantastic. I really loved going through this. I'm going to go through the document in detail. I wanted to know if we have covered, and it's actually, Vinita, something very similar to what you're saying. The important aspect is public affairs, public policy is a very wide-ranged capability, if one would call it to be, right? So depending on the company, it can range from anything to impacting policy at the highest level to going into the state governments and engaging there. So one of the things, and I'm just saying very, very practically, which would help is if capabilities are, mapped out, right, and finding the right kind of talent for the capability, something for, state, something for center, something for the kind of work, maybe analysis, maybe outreach, what have you. So I think that would really bring out value in terms of, as someone who would want to hire, sure. I would love to see that kind of thing. I think there was an attempt.
So there is data. This was a shorter version of what we have in the report, but the report does have stuff on what are the skill sets that employers are looking for. So that is there, and which also goes into and what is it that they have trouble finding, right? So there is some, but yes, I understand about the state center aspect. Perhaps, is something we could look
at. Thanks. Deepak, you had raised your hand, please, yeah.
Thanks, Vinita. So, Parth, you did mention about the bazaar part. And in the bazaar concept, normally we do talk about the invisible hand of market. Mm-hmm. So, just wanted to seek your opinion in terms of, do you see any invisible hand in terms of policy also in this? This is Deepak Maheshwari, former CEO of PAFI. Thank you.
Oh, I think that's a larger theoretical question. I do, frankly, because I think public policy is about systems thinking, right? So you are thinking about a larger system. You are not working with individuals and making a sort of trying to change their behavior one by one. And therefore, I think aligning the systems in a way that you, in the direction in which you want the system to go, requires both visible hand and, of course, invisible hand to work together, right? So policy could be seen as a visible hand of the sort of society, while the invisible hand makes it possible for people to coordinate along with the intentions of the policy, right? So policy has both incentives and sometimes penalties, and you design it in a way so that the individuals, businesses, non-profits, all of them work towards public interest.
Okay.
I'm not sure that answers your question, if that's what you had in mind, but.
If there are no more questions, okay, one more, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Amit from Corning Technology. So I really appreciate the effort put by PAFI team, in putting this report. A nice presentation, Deep. So as I see, I mean, the government affairs is a very evolving thing. It's no more limited to the licensing or the, the advocacy part. It's getting more integral part of the organization. So in fact, when the people used to ask me what exactly you do, so I have started saying I do everything for the organization, to survive and grow. So what I see, I mean, nowhere you will see any profession which is such a melting pot. We have people from legal, we have people from business development, we have people from media, law, everyone is into this profession. So what challenge still, which I think Swati also mentioned and Amit also, is like still there's no performance metrics, within the organization, and that also has to be designed, sector-wise, for manufacturing. So outcome cannot be just measured like, you're doing advocacy, it comes out in a media. It's a collective effort actually, fine, it's an industry effort. But how do organizations measure your performance? So there has to be some way, some matrix. Nobody has done work on this. So I think the onus and the effort lies on the PAFI to work on it.
So on the performance matrix and its main components.
Exactly. And some long haul task remains for PAFI is like, can we formalize this profession at all? I know the CAs and the law profession is already formalized basis on the degrees, but this can be formalized more on the basis of the practice.
Right. So as I mentioned, the performance metrics aspect, right? That is something that we at PAFI are working on, and we will continue to, not just in this project, but also in other projects. And I hope I will have your cooperation and these inputs when we work on that. We hope to have something to show you soon.
Yeah.
Sorry. And we are also working together, create a sort of alliance of public policy schools, right? So no one single school can do many of the things that need to be done for the larger ecosystem. So I think it's very important, even though we may compete like any other business in some sense, right? In the sector, but I think it's important for us to come together and answer some of those questions about what skill sets are required for what kind of work they are going to be doing. What's the, I think, career path. So when we talk to many of the consultancies, EY and others, for the HR manager, it's not very clear, right? Where does the public policy graduate go after the first year, right? It's very clear when you hire an MBA. It's very established pathways. You know exactly how to assess them, which track to put them on. It's not so clear for the HR departments even today, right, where the public policy person is going to go. So I think it's important for all policy schools to come together, including the public affairs sort of sector, to work together to create that kind of clarity on the career path.
Yeah. No, it's a very important, not just a tool, but a great asset, this report, if I may say. And just one more addition here, if you see the stage today, it's a very balanced stage, right? And I hope the report going forward will also provide a navigation tool for corporates to keep inclusion and diversity in mind in public policy as a profession on every side. And I think this was an effort that PAFI really made this year. And I really look forward to also a matrix there on how companies can be nudged to promote, and in academic curricula as well. Yep. And stop this leaky pipeline, at least in public policy.
At least we, at ISPP, we have 50-50 almost.
Well, I don't know the numbers in public policy in India, but I think definitely women have made an impact, you can see here. And I think more women are coming into this profession. And See? Yeah, right now, of course. And with that, thank you so much. Deepshika, over to you, please.
Thank you, Vinita. Thank you, Parth and Deep. So I think you've all talked about what all we need to do. But obviously the role of the public affairs profession is expanding tremendously. So we need to think together as a community, what is it that we need to do with the young people who are coming into the profession. There are many experienced people, and then there are many middle and young people. So how do we create these career progression paths? And we're looking forward to doing more of these studies with you, Parth, and your wonderful students. So I hope you'll continue to partner with us. And I think the big thing I saw was on the measurement, and that is something we've been talking about. Let me also say it's not just public affairs. Actually, if you look at across communication, whether it's advertising, whether it's the standard communications, and so on, there is always this question. And yes, it is incumbent upon the industry community to put down some metrics which they believe reflect the work that we do. But I think the biggest challenge here, and I urge each of you to think about this, is we're often not able to share the impact of our success because we work behind the scenes. A lot of it is confidential. It can't be shared. And unless we're able to share more, talk more about the best practices that are seeing the light in this industry, measurement won't go hand in hand, right? So I think it's a bit of a continuum, and I hope PAFI will be able to bring some more thought to this, and we've already started discussing a lot about how do we do that, because we have to do justice to each one of us sitting in this room and the many others who are going to join this profession. So looking forward to more partnering with you, Parth, and your team. Thank you again.
Great points, Deepshikha. Stay engaged, our members, and folks, don't go anywhere. Our next session is around the corner, but before that, thank you so much, Parth, Deepshikha, and all of you for being with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take my 8 minutes.